of all the things we're about to cover in what was a crazy week, keep in mind that this week, begins Paul Manafort's trial for conspiracy against the United States, along with a litany of other crimes. It's going to be a wild, wild ride to the midterms. Jay Pork's podcast. Hey yo! What is the word, people? Welcome back into another action-packed edition of the Jay Porks podcast. I am Jay Porks. With me, as always, on the other side of the glass, making sure this is a well-oiled podcast machine. Every week is the ever-popular Nobody. That, on the intro, you may have thought was a little weird. It is 311, covering The Offspring, Self-Esteem. And yes, in case you're wondering, The Offspring did cover a 311 song. They are on tour together this summer, and I'm hoping that I get a chance to get out to PNC Bank Arts Center, which is about 20-30 minutes from good old-fashioned Staten Island, or North Texas, as I like to refer to it, ever so lovingly here on the podcast, and hopefully I can get out to that. I was at Pixies Weezer over the weekend, but, you know, that was my 6 hours of a break from the news cycle. And then I started focusing on reading Carter Page's FISA warrant, which we're going to talk about in detail in a little while. But I really want to talk about, I want to talk about how things come to be in the news. And you may have caught on to this before. Earlier this week, it was revealed that Michael Cohen has a tape of him and Trump on the phone talking about possibly, we don't know the contents of the recording, possibly about Karen McDougal and the payment to her to silence her before the election. Now, that could be some campaign finance laws, some election violations, whatever, because it goes unreported. FEC might have something to do with it. Used to work for the FEC, but whatever. So, there's a lot there. And I know you want to explode, and you want to be like, we gotta hear that tape. Where's Michael Avenatti to tell us to release the tapes? We gotta hear the tape. Send it to the Supreme Court before they vote on the new guy. Like, take a step back. Because Michael Cohen, Trump's former lawyer, who now hired Lanny Davis, Bill Clinton's freaking lawyer, to defend him in this what is probably going to be an indictment, unless he has a lot of helpful information for all prosecutors. So you want the tape out. You have to think, Michael Cohen, Avenatti, all of this stuff. It seems almost too good, right? It seems like, oh man, they're going to have the tape's going to come out. Like, you have to remember that things get put out there for a reason. It's the shiny object syndrome. check this shiny bowl of shiny stuff over here while I'm, doing all my dirt over here. It's a misdirection game is what it is. It's a game of misdirection, and I won't have any of it. And the second I knew I wasn't going to have any of it was halfway through that first day, I believe it was Monday or Tuesday, when the news broke about the tape, about there being the existence of a tape and several tapes which have prominent, quote, prominent figures on them and, consequential information, high profile people, hi Sean Hannity. When you hear that, you start to say, how is this? So all of those weren't privileged conversations? No. The tape that they're talking about that Cohen has about Karen McDougal, the 2-minute conversation he recorded with Trump, was privileged, and the White House, Trump and Giuliani, they waived privilege, citing that it exculpatory. You guys know the word I'm looking for, right? Exculpatory. I don't know. They're trying to say that it's not incriminating. Why would you, even if it's not incriminating, why would you waive any privileged tape? I'll tell you why. They do that because they are the government, after all. The White House knows that when the Justice Department was going to put out the Carter Page FISA warrant, and they knew that they were going to have a tough time spinning that, because if you read that, you understand that this is not, you understand that if there's a deep state, we ain't defeating it. If the deep state goes this deep, there is no defeating of it. And I don't know whose joke it was, but I'll keep repeating it every other week. If there was some deep state plot between the FBI and the DNC and the Justice Department and sanctuary cities and immigration and immigrants and Muslims, if there was this whole deep state conspiracy to take down Trump, then why is he still in the Oval Office? Did they plan this big thing and then not do it? Who would put that much effort into something and then just not do it? I don't understand it. So the Carter Page FISA warrant, this guy was being recruited by Russian intelligence to help sway an election. That's not pundits' opinion. That's not analysts' opinion. That's not talking heads on TV's opinion. That's the Justice Department. The Federal Bureau of Investigation believes that. And they believe it so strongly that they, responded to a Freedom of Information, a Freedom of Information Act request, and they got the documents, and they released the documents to the public, because we're in so deep here, treason, and we got Putin's coming to Washington. We are in so deep here. The Justice Department's probably like, we need to release this. People need to read this so they can see that this isn't some witch hunt, that the dossier wasn't the thing that triggered the investigation. And listen, if anybody does things like Carter Page did, if Carter Page worked for the Clinton campaign and did those same behaviors, this would be a different story. Her campaign would have been under another investigation. So we would have known about 2, then they would have told us about it. And we would have known about 2 ongoing investigations into Clinton and 0 into Trump. By the way, I mentioned Hillary Clinton, so I just want to get this out there. If you share on Facebook the bag of Doritos and the new flavor is Nacho President and it's like Hillary Clinton, I'm reporting you as hate speech. You've been warned. That's it. It's offensive. It's offensive to my people. You know who my people are? Americans. We're not treason weasels. We're not people that don't mind being sold out to another country for a couple extra bucks and some debt forgiveness. And the ability to have sex with underage women. There's a story on the BBC. Did anyone see this? BBC Panorama did a 2-part piece on Donald Trump being a sex pest. And while they didn't say that, he banged 15-year-old girls, they did say that he was quoted as to going up to, he went up to some girl and was like, how old are you? Some 17-year-old model. And she's like, I'm 17. He's like, oh, that's good. Not too old, not too young. Yeah, it's too young, you fucking creepazoid. But anyhow, these parties were where people like Trump and old rich men would go and there'd be young models there, aspiring models. And, you obviously know where this is going. I mean, there was cocaine, there was booze, there was young models and old men. It's not like this was, a big party with people of all ages. It was specifically old men. And I guarantee you, even though I didn't see the actual episode, I guarantee you that Epstein is at these parties. Bet you anything. Because that's what Trump is. He's a sex pest. Not only is he a sex pest, he's a serial groper. He's a liar. And he's like, above all, like, his behavior is not American. Going over to Helsinki and bowing at the feet of Vladimir Putin is not American. And it's weak. And it shows just how weak of an individual some of these people are supporting on Facebook. Like, listen, if you support Trump and you're stupid and you keep that a secret and you pretend you don't, at least I'd respect you for having the wherewithal to know that you sound like an idiot. But to be out there on Facebook, actually say, hey, yeah, I love what Trump did. What? Nothing Trump has ever done in office has been good for anybody. Anybody. Oh, well, Jay, I got $1,000 bonus from my job. Yeah? Did your job stay open? Because a lot of places closed. Jay, Harley Davidson and Boeing, they're staying in America. No, they're not. Harley Davidson's out. That Boeing plant was closing anyway. That thing is done. It's a lie. They're all lies. Unions. Done! Because the Supreme Court shut them down! And obviously not unions are done. It's just a huge blow to unions that sets up unions being done. While all this was going on, cuts to Medicare were made. They're trying to cut food stamps. They may have successfully done it. To be honest, I'm so deep into this that even I'm missing stuff. They're trying to cut food stamps and entitlements this week. Because Paul Ryan's still in office till November. So he is going to take he's going to try his best to take all the entitlements away and bankrupt my future. So when I get old and I can't walk, first of all, I'm 31 and I can't walk. When I'm 62, oh my God, my life is going to suck. But so I'm not going to be able to get my whatever $400 a month that I'm entitled to for working on the books all these years, because the Russian compromised GOP in 2016 decided to back someone who was going to ruin my future, ruin the country, and ruin the future of your kids and your grandkids, and and I'm talking on several different levels. I'm talking in terms of psychologically, with the way people talk, with the way there's more outward racism now. Racism out loud in public. The way you see a black person on the street and there's people calling the cops, like Permit Patty is there, I don't understand. A black woman got the cops called on her at a CVS for trying to use a coupon. It's real life. Living while being person of color, Also, our environment, we're trying to save this planet, and they're rolling back the fuel emissions for the cars. They're saying you can go kill endangered species, you can go drill on the land that we said you can't drill at. Climate change is real. We got people that think the earth is flat, and that's actually picking up steam. I don't know. I'm sorry if it's hard for me to wrap my head around all this stuff sometimes, but like, this isn't. I'm not on my podcast every week raging against the machine so I can hope to, have pot legal. That's a sidebar issue in this right now. Like, I want to live on Earth, and I want Earth to be the best for every human being on the planet. And that means we need clean air, we need to recycle, and we need to teach people. Listen, I'm not talking about participation trophies and make everybody like each other. I'm not saying that. But the racism needs to stop. The seeing people and seeing their color, it needs to stop. And even if you say, Jay, I can't do that, do it for 5 minutes of the day. That's 5 more minutes than you would have done it before. Just try. Do it for me. Do me a favor and just try, because we need to raise children who are going to raise children who are tolerant of people of all walks of life. This whole world, like, there's so many different types of people. And we could sit around and kill each other, or we could learn to all work together. It doesn't mean we all have to like each other. But if everybody on the planet strives to, keep the planet, then I think that we can do some great things. And it starts here in America, because we're supposed to be the leaders. We are supposed to be the leaders of the free world. Now, are we? It's questionable now. Our NATO allies are done trusting us. They're not relying on the United. They're not waiting for us. Like, normally people countries take cue from the United States. Nobody's doing that anymore. None of our allies are doing that. So what you have to ask yourself is, what can I do as an American in America to help make the country and in turn the world better for the future? And also, what can I do to, first of all, take my country back? Because by the way, if you're listening to this, the Republicans, it's not just like a Republican. They took your country with help from the Russian government and the NRA. Russia, NRA, money into Trump. They took your country from you. You were living in a progressive country that was with the times. Marriage equality, states are legalizing weed. Public education is getting, I don't care. I know people are going to say, oh, look at the test score. No, public education is way better than it was years ago, and it is getting better every single year. With help, with funding, you know what I'm saying? So, the policies, Title IX protections, stuff like that. Protecting, women on college campuses who get assaulted. These things need to stay, the core values. And it's, do unto others, man. Treat others the way you want to be treated. And and listen, it's really important to vote. Step 1 is November, we go out and vote. And you know what you do when you go out and vote? You take a friend who's never voted before. You get them to register, and you take them to vote. Because again, 93 million Americans sat out the last time that there was an election. We can't have that. If we get 10 million of those people to come out, whoever's running on the progressive end of the ticket is going to win, 52 electoral states, even though there's only 50. You know what I'm saying? It's going to be a landslide, more than Stevie Nicks. All right. So, you take a friend and you vote in November. Right? And then now we've taken the steps at the local level to elect officials that are going to actually do what the checks and balances system is supposed to do. Remember from social studies when you learned about like checks and balances, how the U.S. government was founded? Checks and balances. That's not happening now. So we need to elect people who are going to step up and rise up and check and balance the power that's being seized by the house that is white. And then, you know what, man? We might, when 2020 comes, it's going to be hard. We're going to have to roll up our sleeves and, we're going to have to do some volunteer work. We're going to have to get out on the streets. We're going to have to join street teams. We're going to have to volunteer for campaigns. And we're going to have to push our progressive ideologies and let people know that this country is not going back to the right. This country is moving left, okay? And by left, I mean people are going to be able to go to the doctor and not get a bill. Because the bill is going to be the taxes that are getting taxed from their paycheck. Because it is every person's right to have health care. It's every person's right to go to a tuition-free city college. I'm not talking about going to Yale. Yeah, relax. I'm talking about the College of Staten Island. I'm talking about city colleges. Community colleges, as they call them. I'm talking about that. Tuition-free. So people can learn. Because I'm under the impression, I've always been under the impression that when you turn 18 and you graduate high school, going right into college right after that summer is probably the worst thing you can do. Like when you've had 12 consecutive years of school, take a break from it. If that was me, and I had dropped out of school already, but like if I was a guidance counselor, I would advise anybody graduating high school to take a year off of school. Work. It's possible you learned everything you needed to learn. Some people didn't. So, that's what I'm saying. So some people can go to college and learn, oh man, I just decided I want to do this. Well, now they have the option. Women's rights will be decided on by women. By women. With the parts that have the decisions to make. Not by old white men who, are funded by pro-life groups and have Michael Cohen pay for under-the-table abortions. Not that. All right. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to get a commercial going. And then we are going to get into the thread count. And we are going to talk a little bit about Mr. Carter Page, Russian agent, when we come back after this. Hey yo, J Porks here, back to record my own commercials. And here's the deal. You may have heard me complaining on today's podcast or a previous podcast about suffering through a summer of unemployment. Well, we have a fix for that, and it is called Patreon. That's right. Least Coast Radio now has a Patreon page, and all you need to do is go to patreon.com/jporks, and there are 3 tiers that you can subscribe to, 3 tiers you can join to become a member of Least Coast Radio, of the Least Coast Radio community, of Porks Nation. You'll even have a chance to pick the name and all that stuff. And we are not offering just thank yous and shout outs. We got bonus content. There is even a tier where you are able to talk to me on the phone every week. And we will go over what is happening in our country. And you could personally talk to me, J Pork. Personal interactions. There's a tier where there's a group. You can join a group, and you could affect where the podcast goes that week. I need a community. I need help. Not necessarily money, but I need people to be helping me out. So therefore, that's why I created a Least Coast Radio Patreon. Not to be confused with a GoFundMe or a Kickstarter. This is not me with my handout. I have bonus content. Bonus content to offer you. I have tons of it. I have tons of time, and I want to give it to you. All you need to do is join us on Patreon. Become a Patreon. Patreon.com/jporks. Look for the Least Coast Radio Patreon page. You'll see me. You'll see me with a microphone and dies in your house next to the name. You'll see that. So just go hit us on Patreon. You will get a thank you. I will know that, and you will have a lot to do with what goes down on the J Porks podcast and everything concerned with Least Coast Radio. It's going to be a big year for us. 2018. Let's get it done. And those familiar snare sounds can only mean one thing. It is time to hop right back into another edition of the Thread Count here on the J Porks podcast. This is where I go on Twitter and I get threads, which is tweets on tweets pertaining to the corruption that's going on. Really, we focus the Thread Count on stuff intelligence community-wise, the Mueller probe. And just before I get to a couple of short threads here, well, a long one and a short one, I just want to point out that there are several people you need to be following if you want, some insight into what's going on, not from, me. If you want to hear it from people who used to work in intelligence, who used to be intelligence analysts, research, stuff like that, here's a list of people you need to follow. You need to follow @20committee. @20committee, who I'm going to read a couple of things in a second from him. @20committee used to work with U.S. intelligence in some form. I'm not pulling it up right now, but follow @20committee. Follow Molly McHugh if you want, news about the Baltics and whiskey related to corruption. You follow Greg Olear. You follow Alias Vaughn. And you follow, not even for threads, just for, if you want quick hitters, go follow Rick Wilson on Twitter. Folks, I understand that Rick Wilson is not on the left, he's not a Democrat, and I don't agree with, probably a lot of the things he would vote for, in terms of an election. But, these Republicans that are coming out swinging, it's hilarious. And also Dr. Denna Grayson, who is going to make an appearance in the Thread Count in a few moments. But first and remember, the Thread Count is sponsored by my Patreon page. You can go to patreon.com/jporks and you can check out the tiers and you can become a Patreon and you can get bonus content from the J Porks podcast and Least Coast Radio. That's Least Coast Radio for the least heard voices. To get Least Coast Radio, you just follow me on Twitter @Least Coast Radio. Go to iTunes, subscribe to Least Coast Radio. As you can tell, I'm like 3 cups of coffee in right now, so don't mind me, I'm going a little fast. But if you go to Patreon, if you sign up for the lowest tier, if you sign up for any tier, you are going to get personalized artwork from yours truly. Every month, I'll send you a drawing. I draw. I do some stuff. I used to do graffiti. You know what I'm saying? I know things. I got colored pencils and stuff. You get bonus content. You get the ability to say, hey, Jay, I got an idea. Maybe you should do this. Maybe you should talk about this. This isn't getting talked about. You have that opportunity. So what I need you to do is go to patreon.com/jporks. It's the Least Coast Radio Patreon page. Just read it. Just read, check it out. Let me know what you think. There will be exclusive stuff to Patreon coming up in probably September when I have to work again. Because, I'm going to eventually have to work again. But we are at July 23rd. And I'm still have not seen $1 of unemployment. And my last day of work was June 13th. Again, I work with special needs kids. There should be no reason why there's questions about should I or should I not get unemployment. But anyhow, let's pull up the Twitter machine, shall we? Shall we pull up the Twitter machine and see what is recently liked? So we got going on here. Well, before we get to Dena Grayson, I want to do her after. I'm gonna cover the. Dena Grayson covers the Carter Page. She read the Carter Page indictment, not indictment. Second time I've said indictment. The Carter Page FISA application, the warrant. Like, she read it and broke it down for us, and I'm gonna get to that in a second or two. But 20 committee, John Schindler. He's national security for the Observer. He's a historian, he's a security consultant, he's an author, he's a counterintelligencer, and a cat guy. Former NSA, so he knows his stuff. So when I retweet a tweet from this guy, it's something you should take seriously. So this comes off again. I don't know who's advising Carter Page, but Carter Page should never go on television again. Ever in his life, there should be no way that Carter Page makes a television appearance, especially with Jake Tapper. I mean, you want to talk about someone who's going to press for answers, Jake Tapper. And if you're going to go on and not say anything and not answer any questions, then, don't go on at all. But I don't know who's advising this guy. This guy needs to hire a PR crisis firm immediately. Because you go on television and you continually incriminate yourself. So his basic defense, so it says that he's an agent of Russia in the FISA warrant. His defense is that I'm too dumb and, too much of a loser for the Kremlin to even want to use me. That's the excuse he's using as to why he wasn't an asset. So, at 20 committee rightfully points out, when you repeatedly attempt to get the SVR, that's the Foreign Intelligence Unit in Russia. But SVR is Russian words that I can't pronounce, and it's actually Russian letters too, so. When you repeatedly attempt to get the SVR to recruit you, and you brag publicly about being, quote, I was too big a weirdo and loser for the Russians to actually use me in clandestine operations, isn't exactly a good excuse, much less evidence of your innocence. For instance, an example. So, I repeatedly tried to smuggle drugs for the cartel, but then they decided I was too dumb to work for them. And try that on the DEA and see what happens next. So if a Carter Page to say, well, I was just, I wasn't smart enough. I was a weirdo. They didn't want to deal with me. Well, actually, the U.S. government is under the impression that they were able to deal with you. And we're going to talk about, let's jump right into Carter Page's FISA application, and we'll go to Dena Grayson right now. No, not now, but right now. And we're talking Carter Page, and we're going to get this from Dr. Dena Grayson on Twitter. You should follow her. She's a member of Team Patriot for sure, and really has some insightful tweets, breaking things down, and her tweets help keep the thread count here on the J Porks podcast a cool thing to have. So let's check it out. Carter Page FISA warrant application has been released. The FBI didn't mince words, initially identifying the target of the FISA application as Carter W. Page, a U.S. person and an agent of a foreign power, described in detail below. FISA application alleges Page did, quote, knowingly engage in clandestine intelligence activities involving, quote, a violation of the criminal statutes of the United States. Page was, quote, the subject of targeted recruitment by Russia to undermine and influence the outcome of the election. It's a lot of redactions here, but you have to bear with everyone. Page's FISA warrant application discusses the WikiLeaks release stolen DNC emails. Putin denies that Russia was behind the hack, but the U.S. intelligence agencies was confident that Russia hacked the democratic groups and, quote, intended to interfere with the U.S. election process. The FISA warrant alleges Russia's coordination with Carter Page, redacted, quote, to undermine and improperly and illegally influence the 2016 presidential election. Redacted. But let's say that again. Russia's coordination with Carter Page, redacted, to undermine and improperly and illegally influence the 2016 presidential election. And she's got the bombs here for boom. As part of, quote, the Russian government's attempts to influence the 2016 presidential election, the FBI alleges that Russia's efforts are, quote, being coordinated with Page and perhaps other individuals associated with candidate number one's campaign. And candidate number one is obviously the orange cunt monkey that occupies the Oval Office at the moment. That the orange cunt monkey part, that's Jay Porks. That's not Dana Grayson. So don't hate tweet her. Hate tweet me. The FBI describes Page's treason tour in Moscow in July 2016 in the midst of the Trump campaign, where Page met with at least two Russian officials, Igor Sechin and Igor Divichin. And you know what? Pause for a second. Pause on Dana Grayson for a second, because I should know how to pronounce that because I watched the video of Jake Tapper interviewing Carter Page, which is a whole nother story for another day, but I watched that and I heard them pronounce it, and I'm mispronouncing it. So he met with two guys named Igor, according to Source One, and Source One is, of course, Christopher Steele, who is the guy who was hired by Fusion GPS. By Republicans. Still me talking here. By Republicans, later picked up, after the primaries were over, later picked up and started paying for by the Clinton campaign, but not something that the Clinton campaign initiated. Clinton campaign did not initially hire GPS, Fusion GPS. That's what people need to understand. Okay, back to the thread count with Dana Grayson here. Before the election in September 2016, Michael Isikoff reported on Carter Page's July 2016 treason tour to Moscow, where he met with Sechin and Dvorovich, senior Kremlin official overseeing the Russian intel on the election. These two Igors, they're senior Kremlin officials overseeing the Russian intel on the election. Continuing on, FISA app says that Source One, Christopher Steele, was hired by identified U.S. person Glenn Simpson, the owner of Fusion GPS, to conduct research regarding candidate one, Trump's, ties with Russia, and that Simpson never disclosed to Steele the motivation for digging into Trump's ties with Russia. So let's say again, so the FBI is saying that they believe, Glenn Simpson went there and was like, listen, we told Christopher Steele, we told this British, M16 agent, we told him to go out there and do research into Trump's ties. We didn't give him a reason why. So it wasn't like, he had a specific answer he was looking for in that sense. It was just, go investigate because you know Russia, and like you can get into Russian circles and stuff like that. So the FBI, in the FISA warrant, is acknowledging that Glenn Simpson has, because he's testified, I think, under oath twice. So another important thing here, Dana Grayson continues on. Although Steele wasn't told the reasons for digging into Trump's ties with Russia, the FBI clearly stated in the FISA app that they believe Simpson was, quote, looking for information that could be used to discredit Trump's campaign. The FISA app says that despite reasons that Steele was hired to research Trump's ties with Russia, Steele previously had provided reliable info to the FBI and the FIFA scandal, and his Trump-Russia reporting would be considered, quote, credible. The quote is credible in the FISA app. So the people say, oh, the dirty dossier started that. The narrative that tries to discredit the Christopher Steele dossier is actually, the Justice Department actually finds him to be a credible source. He was one of the guys that helped with that FIFA scandal a couple years ago. Continuing on. Despite Team Trader's attempts to discredit Page's FISA application, the court was aware that Simpson hired Steele to research Trump ties to Russia in a likely attempt to find info to discredit Trump. And the court still granted the warrant on Page. So again, they were hired by Republicans first to discredit Trump. So that's what happened. It's still unclear whether it was Marco Rubio or Ted Cruz, but Marco Rubio's a little too quiet these days for it not to have been him. You know what I'm saying? One day we'll find out for sure. But anyway, let's continue on. And again, it says the court still granted the FISA warrant on Page. And pause again. It's important to note that the FISA warrant is something you need to keep renewing, like every 90 days or so. So, it was renewed 4 times by at least 3 times, possibly 4. I'm not quite sure. By Republican judges named by Republicans. I mean, of course, the judges don't have political leanings anymore. They're not supposed to when they take the bench, but they've been appointed by Republicans. That's very important here. So, it's not like, Eric Holder did the FISA warrant on Carter Page. That's not what happened. So, continuing on, denigration. The FISA app describes Page's July 2016 treason tour, when he secretly met with Sechin and discussed lifting sanctions, as Isakov reported in September of that year. And he also met with the Da Vinci, who offered the possibility of giving Team Trump a dossier of compromise on Clinton. So there's a Clinton dossier. Apparently. Continuing on. FISA app describes Team Trump's efforts to soften the GOP platform. The GOP platform on Ukraine in direct contradiction to, quote, almost all Republican foreign policy leaders following Trump's, quote, recent association with several people sympathetic to Russia, including Carter Page. According to Michael Isakov in September 2016, quote, certain members of Congress were taken aback when briefed by Page's alleged meetings with these two Russians named Igor, and viewed the meetings as possible back channels to Russia. FBI did not think that Christopher Steele was Isakov's source. FISA app also notes that Trump's campaign tried to distance itself from Page after Isakov's damning 2016 report in September, in 2 months before the election. Team Trump refused to comment as to why Trump previously had called Dr. Carter Page his foreign policy advisor. Hashtag busted. In September 2016, Page sent the FBI a letter falsely claiming that he did not meet this year with any sanctioned official in Russia. According to Isakov, Page meets with sanctioned Igor in July 2016, and they were actively monitored. Hashtag felony. Reminder, it's a felony to lie to the FBI, regardless of whether or not one is under oath. However, given the other, much more serious crimes that Page is allegedly committing here, this is the least of his worries. Hashtag Mueller is coming. The FISA warrant concludes by alleging that Page has been collaborating and conspiring with the Russian government and was knowingly engaged in clandestine intelligence activities. In summary, the FISA warrant is damning for Team Trump and clearly shows the court knew about possible political motivations for Steele's hire, and yet still granted the warrant. After several hours, on a Saturday night no less, after breaking this down, I'm done. If you're wondering why Carter Page hasn't been arrested yet, don't worry. Mueller hasn't unloaded indictments on Team Trader for national security related crimes. But he will soon. Hashtag Mueller is coming. Page's FISA warrant application, plus 3 renewals. So there's the confirmation there. I wasn't sure if it was 3 or 4 before. Now we know it's 3. 3 renewals was over 400 pages long. There's more to unpack, including the FBI providing the court with more details about Steele that totally blew away the fucking fake. She didn't say fucking, but blown away the Devin Nunes hashtag fake memo. But that's it for now. And okay, so that is Dr. Dena Grayson. You could follow her on Twitter at Dr. Dena Grayson. And she is the spouse of Representative Alan Grayson. He's a progressive. He's a former candidate for U.S. Congress. She's a medical doctor and a scientist. And per Trump trolls, she is a brain-dead moron. That's what they call her. You know, because they're smart enough to vote for a traitor. But anyway. So it's very important to know that people say that the investigation into the campaign was kicked off by the dossier. That's not true. Possibly, well, definitely, Carter Page's FISA warrant was kicked off by the dossier. May have been kicked off by the dossier. But don't forget about George Papadopoulos, who has already pleaded guilty. And again, like, let's go full disclosure here, okay? Like, all right, so as you know, on this podcast, I've stopped talking about anything that, you know, is not the resistance and Mueller and, you know, just trying to fight for democracy, man, because, you know, I might hate my government, but I love my country. You know what I'm saying? And I just want to make it better by electing people who care about people and not just old rich white men who want to collude with other countries. And it's not even the collusion factor. It's just all these people with money, like, they're like, oh, you got money? I got money? Okay, well, let's come up with schemes how to keep this money away from the rest of the world. You know, and it's just sick and disgusting behavior that happens. And you try to change a narrative. And, like, that's why the FBI felt the need. Think about it. The FBI made they redacted a lot of it, but they had 400 pages. They let 400 pages out. And, like, so it's important, like, it's important enough for the Justice Department to release this document to the public. Like, you know? So it's a thing that I'm sorry if it's lost me some friends. I'm sorry if people are annoyed with me and they don't want to talk to me. Like, you know, I'm sorry that, you know, I have less conversations with my dad now because I always try to turn to politics. I don't try, but, like, you know, if I say, hey, did you hear what, you know, Maddow said the other night? And he says, I don't even know what that is. Like, my head wants to explode. But anyway, like, full disclosure, over the weekend, I was with my girlfriend down in South Jersey, and we were hanging out, and we, you know, listen, I took a break for a couple of hours from the news cycle. I took a break from the news cycle on Saturday night from about, you know, 4 o'clock to exactly like 11:05. And we went to the BB&T Pavilion in Camden, New Jersey, and we saw two of my favorite bands, Weezer and the Pixies. And it was awesome, man. And, like, you know, listen, if we get to a point where we can take our country back, us, progressives, liberals, people on the left, everybody on the left, we need to come together. We need to walk together. Hashtag walk together. So, like, I understand that every tweet I put out, and I always say everything is important. There is no fun. But one day we're going to take our country back. And when we do, these podcasts, I'm going to get to talk about the fun times I had at the Weezer show. But, you know, at seeing the Pixies, like, I think it was the second time I've seen the Pixies, fourth time I've seen Weezer. It was fun times, like, and I would get into it with you. Like, I have a website, like, concertconfessions.com is mine. I bought it. I pay money for it. Like, and I don't talk about that because I care about my country so much. So, you know, don't troll me on Facebook, bro. You know what I'm saying? So I took a break for a couple of hours. But my girlfriend could attest to it. Like, as soon as we got in that car, in from the rain, you know, as soon as we got in that car, I pulled up that Carter Page indictment. That Carter Page indictment, I'm sorry. It's not an indictment yet. It's not an indictment, parentheses, yet. But I pulled up that FISA warrant, and I was reading through it, man. I was telling my girl, hey, oh, man, can you believe it? They're saying it right here. Like, Carter Page was conspiring with the Russian government to influence the election. Carter Page worked for the Trump campaign. All right? don't forget about George Papadopoulos, who spouted off to some, Australian diplomats or whatever that he had the Hillary Clinton dirt and then lied about it to the FBI and pleaded guilty and hasn't been sentenced yet because, he's cooperating. That happened, like we were talking about, like Carter Page is having that treason tour, as Dennis Grayson pointed out. He's having the treason tour in June of 2016. Papadopoulos was spouting off at the mouth in March of 2016. He's on Trump's foreign policy team. This is not normal. This is not normal. This is not George Bush. This is not a regular Republican administration we don't like. This is a fascist regime taking over our country. And we can't, for the life of me, let it happen. For the life of us. For the life of these kids, man. For the life of the future. I mean, I just can't. So, like, I'm sorry that I'm Mr. Politics. Oh, Jay got a bug up his ass because he's mad that Hillary Clinton lost. Dude, like, I'm not that much of a stand for Hillary Clinton, to be honest. Like, I don't like the centrism of the Democratic Party's been taking the last couple of years, and I'd rather be more towards the side that Bernie's on, but like in terms of policy, not in terms of optics, but like the thing is that, like what's going on right now is, the press is being called the enemy of the people. Like these are bad. There's a military parade that's going to happen in November after the midterms. Vladimir Putin has been invited to the White House. Don't quote me on the White House part. He's been invited to Washington. I can't understand for the life of me how anybody can sit there and tell me, don't worry about it, Jay, this is going to be okay. And you can't tell me that things like Hitler can't happen again, because I'm not the person you tell that to, because remember that Nazis killed my family. Okay? So if you guys want to be, the nowadays Nazis, I don't even want to call them neo-Nazis. Let's think of a new name, nowadays Nazis. If you want to be millennial Nazis out there, back in the day, there was a saying for the Nazis. Like, listen, people were Nazis in Germany, and there was a saying for the people that weren't really Nazis, but they went along with it, hopefully hoping that, like, maybe they could infiltrate the inside, maybe they could just stick it out, maybe they could help some people, or maybe, like, it would just end. You know what they called those people? Nazis. Because it doesn't matter. At that point, you're a Nazi. So if you're somebody who's conservative, but at the same time, you stick up for Trump, like, you can't call yourself a conservative anymore. You left that party. And there's a lot of Republicans leaving the Republican Party. A lot of prominent political operatives, political operatives who are, have TV shows, who denounce their Republican Party-ship. Listen, man, this Russia NRA into the Republican Party, funneling money, explains a lot when it comes to, in terms of why aren't the Republicans just, impeaching this guy, and why did they even accept this guy in the first place? Well, they must have all been shown, hey, listen, see all this NRA money you took? That's actually Russian money. And you're complicit in this. Man, we're either going to survive it or we're all going to die. And I got to be honest, every second of my day, I try my best. And you know what? Like, I know my girlfriend would love to, like, grab my phone and slip off the news alerts. And one day we'll have a podcast where me and her do a podcast where we talk about times where we were out and a news alert came on and it just ruined my fucking day. Like, this is nonstop. And you have to pay attention to things. The reason that Michael Cohen, that the recording of Michael Cohen and Trump with the Karen McDougal thing, the reason why that's a story, the reason why, because that was a privileged conversation between a client and a, lawyer-client confidentiality. They waived the privilege, saying, oh, well, there's nothing on there incriminating anyway. They tried to give you a little shiny object over here, knowing, because they were obviously told, that this FISA warrant was going to be released. So they tried to control the narrative. Don't let them. Carter Page is not a coffee boy. George Papadopoulos is not a coffee boy. These people have information. And these people are providing that information to Robert Mueller. And, man, I bet Robert Mueller tried to wrap up this investigation like 17 times already. But every time you turn over a rock, there's more Russians. What's your name? Boris. What's your name? Natasha. Oh, boy. Anywho, that's going to do it for another edition of the Thread Count. I need you to, again, follow those people. Follow Dena Grayson. Follow Greg Oliar. Follow 20 Committee. Follow Rick Wilson. Follow Alias Vaughn. Follow Molly McHugh. Follow Eric Garland. Follow Spicy Files. Follow Lincoln's Bible. Follow Counter Checkist. There's a lot of people on Twitter you need to be following who have information for all of us. In a nonpartisan way. Like, these people are just as interested in corruption, whatever side of the aisle it's on. That's just stuff that, really bugs me. Bugs me out that people would say that, the dirty dossier made them trigger a FISA warrant. No, it didn't. It didn't happen like that. And that's not how the FISA court works. And again, 3 renewals. 3 renewals. This isn't a search warrant for a house where it's like, I think there's drugs in there. Maybe we should go check it out. And when the FBI does a FISA warrant, they're trying to protect the target. So, like, Russia was actively trying to recruit Carter Page for clandestine activities. Like, even though he's a target of the warrant, like, they want to protect him because he's American. Safety. So he doesn't unwillingly become an asset of Russia. Or, willingly, as, documents would reveal. When it's all said and done, a lot of people need to go to jail. And I can't keep saying it. We got to take our country back. Young people, progressive people who, even conservatives. How about conservatives who want their country back? Take it back. You know how you get it back? You just push it left. Because then you'll have something real to rage against. But the GOP is complicit in all this. Breaking, Maria Butina is having sex with correctional officers at the current prison she's being held. No, I'm joking. There's actually been no Maria Butina news. I just thought that was a very fascinating story. And don't unshift away from that. Because that's a big deal. She is literally the Russian spy that was over here. I don't know if we call it a spy. But she was on behalf of Russia getting into the NRA and GOP circles and, setting up back channels. And this is how her and Alexander Torshin, they advocate for a gun rights group in Russia, which, by the way, there are no gun rights in Russia. You can't have one. So they don't have a constitution. So there's that. But, so she's being held. We need to not forget about her. We have to keep her name in the news. And here's why. He'll extradite her. He'll give her back to Putin. You know what I mean? And then we won't get anything. And again, that's an investigation that's not Mueller yet. That's a regular U.S. attorney looking at that. So, therefore, you can't smear that with witch hunt talk. And by the way, obviously, with the reading of the FISA application that Carter Page that was renewed 3 times, if you think that there is a witch hunt, then I got a bridge to sell you in Brooklyn, half price today. Today it's on sale. And I got that for you. Okay. Let me get up on out here. But before I do, let me just tell you, first of all, that the Daily Mail is just reporting that Hope Hicks and Rob Porter have been seen together canoodling, as they say. Canoodling. Canoodling is up there with autocracy and totalitarianism as words I didn't think I would say on my podcast ever. But there you have it. So, Rob Porter beat his last 2 wives, so, maybe there's hope for Hicks after all. I don't know what her deal is. I don't know why you would want to be with somebody who beats women. I wouldn't want to be with a girl that beats men, you know what I mean? It's just, I don't want to get hit. Maybe I'm weird. Maybe I'm weird and I don't want to get hit. All right. Now I'm really getting up on out of here. But before I do, I'm going to give you the list of websites you need to go to help keep me in business. First of all, remember to go to patreon.com/jporks. Check out the tiers. Tell me what you think. Get yourself some exclusive content. Remember, these wacky Wednesday episodes of Dies in Your House on Least Coast Radio, those things are going to be moved exclusively to Patreon. There's going to be possibilities to get shows. Even if you're on Patreon, there is a possibility that you would be able to get the J Porks podcast a day early. A day earlier than everybody else. So just take a look at it. Get back to me. Tell me if you see somebody you're like, oh, Jay should do this. Get at me on Twitter at JPorks, and I will, take it under advisement. I want input. I want feedback. You can also go to contentconfessions.com. Now, that's where you're going to get all your live music, news, and reviews for the fans, by the fans. Fresh up on the website, hot off the presses, is the reason why I was up all night. And, you're going to open this thing up. You're going to open up the link. You're going to see 58 words, a set list, and 4 pictures. And you're going to say, why did it take so long for him to do that? Again, one day we will all learn my methods. But trust me, they're crazy. And I will fill everyone in when there's a time and a place. But right now, you go there, hot off the presses, Weezer and the Pixies. It was good to take a couple of hours off of the news cycle just so I can recharge. And then when I got back to the car, my Starbucks Frappuccino thing was waiting for me. I was able to drink that and read the Carter Page warrant application thing when we were in Denny's post-show and for the whole ride home. I was like, babe, can you believe this? An agent of Russia, they're saying it right here. It's going nuts. Go to contentconfessions.com for that. Go to ChristinaRocks.com. Hang the DJ every Sunday morning. She's got a time warp. They call it the time warp because you step into a little time machine and you go back and you listen to the alternative hits that you loved as, well, I don't want to say as a child, that you loved years ago. You get that nostalgia kick. Late 80s, early 90s, alt rock. And you get it at ChristinaRocks.com or follow her on Twitter at ChristinaRocks and you can find the links to it. Christina does not contain an H. You can go to AndyDerrer.com. That's where you're going to get all your Derrer Network podcasting needs. Whether that's the soon-to-be rebooted Andy Derrer Show, the flagship. It's going to happen. And it's going to be gigantic. And that's happening soon. Or you can get, but I'm here every week, keeping us afloat Even though, like, people may have came here for music, and they're getting me basically rage tweeting live. But, you know, I'm sorry. I love my country, and I want it back. I hate my government, but I love my country. And I would just like to have it back. From white supremacists, from nowadays Nazis, from nationalists, from racists, and from old, rich, white men. So there's that. Also, whenever there is music headlines, which, you know, Weezer covered Africa in Camden, that's not a headline. Whenever there's music headlines, listen, I suggest that you go to andyquiet.com. Andyquiet.com is your source for quality. And until next week, folks, remember, Wacky Weed warns Yvonne. Resist, remove, and fight for recreational. Late.
Representing Staten Island.